Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. As you guys can see, the Corvette is behind us. Today we're going to try to fire the car for the first time. Well, I actually have already tried to fire it, but I ran into a big problem and we'll get to that shortly. But basically what we're going to try to do is get the car up and running. I did get the tune from PCM in North Carolina, my fire up tune, and I do have a copy of HP Tuners. So basically what we're going to do today is try to diagnose any issues that we're having, get the tune uploaded, get the tune scanned and all that in. And another quick update that I shot off camera was I did run the wiring for the fuel pressure sensor as well as the wideband. So we should be able to import the wideband as well as the fuel pressure into HP Tuner so that we can help provide as much data as I can for our tuner as well as our own knowledge to know that, hey, we are seeing this much fuel pressure, etc. So yeah, that's pretty much caught up where we are. But as you guys can see, we have the old racing battery, which I kind of said in a previous video is now becoming a test battery. And basically you see the starter is on the ground. Well, basically what was happening is I tried to fire the car up. I cranked it over for like no less than 3 seconds, and then it just stopped cranking. Here you hear the starter click. That's it. It's not trying to move. You don't hear it trying to engage anything else. I've checked all the fuses under the hood. We're good there. The only other thing is we did take the starter out for the project, and that's the first time the starter's been off the car in 17 years. Yeah, something like that. First time I've ever owned it and removed the starter, because as you guys know, we had to get that flywheel locked down so that we could install the crank pulley. So unfortunately, there's no room with that 11 rib LS9, LS3 pulley in the steering rack. I can't get a bolt in there, so I can't try to see if the engine will turn over. So I took the belt off, the blower's spinning, the water pump spinning, power steering spinning, alternator spinning. So we tested all that. That stuff is all good to go. I do have one other update, personal update. I did have surgery last week, so actually it was about 8 days ago. And you'll be seeing an update that in a future video. But I just did want to let you guys know if there is a little bit of a gap in these videos, it's because I was out of commission for about 10 days. Actually, today is like day number 9. No, it's day number 10. For about 10 days, and I couldn't work on the car or anything. So just want to apologize if there is a gap. Like I said, health issues came up, took care of that. And yeah, so back to the video. And basically all I did was run cables from the negative to the ground side, so you guys can see that red wire. I ran a positive cable to the positive terminal on the starter. This is basically the kickoff cable, if that makes sense. And we'll put that into this terminal right here. And you guys will see that the starter does run, but you see it disengaging? You see how that bushing at the very top is jumping in and out? As far as I'm aware, it shouldn't be doing that. You know, I think it's supposed to be saying, you guys just saw the tooth retract and that bushing, like I said, this bushing right here, kind of moving in and out. As far as I'm aware of, that is supposed to be stationary, so that shouldn't be moving around. So as always, things escalate, and I was looking for a new starter for a 2005 Corvette. Unfortunately, GM doesn't make them anymore. You can buy a remanufactured AC Delco for, God, was it like $400, $450? I'll correct that price on the screen down below. It's almost like $400 to $600, something crazy like that. Did some research. I found an aftermarket solution that was in stock, ready to ship next day from Summit Racing. So you guys will see, got a box from Summit Racing, and then this is a electrical connector. And what I ended up ordering was a Power Master 5905 or something like that, 9505. We'll correct that part number down below. But that Power Master starter, it's clockable, and we're going to install that today. And also, I bought a EFI Connection adapter to basically, so we don't have to cut up any harnesses or anything, and I don't have to cut the stock harness to plug in. It's basically a little jumper harness adapter that you'll plug right into this starter, and it'll plug right into the factory wiring. So here are all the items that we ordered. And actually, I forgot we ordered a DEI heat shield as well. So we've got our Power Master starter. As you guys can see, it is clockable. We are going to want to clock it, actually almost where it's pictured. We are going to want to clock it at about the 1 o'clock position. I ordered this DEI heat shield, and I also got, like I said, here's that jumper harness from EFI Connection. This should plug into our factory harness, and then that should plug into the aftermarket starter. So no cut solution. This should plug in, like I was saying. I actually ordered this in the hospital waiting for the doctor to come in the OR. Actually, it was in the pre-op room, but whatever. So while I was sitting there for 2 hours, I threw this up on Summit Racing on my phone, ordered it, went under for my surgery, got out of it, and by the time I kind of woke up and got cognizant, this was at my house the next day. So my surgery was an outpatient, so I was in and out in a couple hours. I ordered it from pretty much the operation room, and it got delivered the next day. So that's actually pretty cool. All right, so like I was saying, I was actually right. It is the PowerMaster 9509. Here is the heat shield, all unwrapped and fully exposed. Basically, what you're gonna do is after we install the starter, you'll wrap that around, and however many times that Velcro hit is where you tighten it. You may need to trim it. I'm not sure. We'll figure that out in a little bit. But here is that ignition adapter harness I was telling you about from EFI Connection. So that goes to your ignition terminal, and I just used the nut that was already on there. So there are some washers that came with it. I don't think we're going to be able to use any of them. There actually is a crush washer. I might use that. Yeah, I might take that nut back off and use this crush washer underneath it. But yeah, so there's your ignition wire. So this should be plug and play. And then this terminal is obviously for your battery cable. Yeah, so we've got aftermarket battery cables, and we are actually going to be replacing one of those. So, and I actually have one cable coming from the battery or the starter or the alternator, one of those. And there's also another one coming from the fuse box. So that system is all linked together. And like I was saying, this is right at the 12 o'clock position. We're going to want to take these apart. I need to find out the torque specs to see what we have to retighten it back down to. But we're going to want to clock this at the 1 o'clock position. That was kind of the suggested install location. And then here's your mounting hardware and a shim. We're not going to use the shim. We're just going to use the bolts. There's some washers for that. And there's also this shim as well. We're not going to use that either, because basically what I saw was you just put this up against the block, against the bell housing, put the 2 bolts in, and you should be good to go. All right, guys, you can see I pretty much kind of marked out this as like a clock. So 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. We aimed it for about the 1 o'clock. We might be a little bit off, but I think we'll have plenty of clearance with the block. And then it's either the crank position sensor. There's some sensor that's right here that, that's why we're clocking this in the first place. So now that we've got the starter clocked, we put the ring back in it, and this ring will, I think they said it torques down to 50 inch-pounds, so basically hand tight. And this is a T25 bolt for both this section right here and this right here. So it's a T25 Torx. So I got the starter clocked, and you basically want to torque each one of these bolts down evenly, because this is a flat surface, and if this is sticking up in any one direction, you'll know and it won't be flat. So you guys can kind of see there is a little bit of a ridge, but that ridge is around the whole ring. So yeah, torque that down evenly, should be good to go. All right, guys, you can see we got the starter installed, so we're good there. There's just 2 bolts here. It's 37 foot-pounds for those 2 bolts, and I did use the little washers that came with the starter kit with the new bolts, so we used all that. You guys can see there is a little bit of a gap here. I may trim the stock piece down to what that is. I mean, it's honestly just like 2 inch by 2 inch, so I might trim that down. Just not sure yet. But I did also want to update you the electrical adapter that we bought from EFI Connection. It actually lists this wire for 2006 to 2013. My car is a 2005, and the starters and wiring is no different, so I don't know why it doesn't say 2005, but it did plug right in. I made sure that the plug went in, it's correctly in its slot. The male and female parts are lined up perfectly, and it went right in. So yeah, so this is a no cut install on the starter, so that's really cool. So all right, guys, as I just mentioned, I was going to be redoing one of the battery cables, and that's actually going to be this end right here. You guys can see this is actually a Moroso battery cable. I installed this years ago when we relocated the battery from right here to the back of the car. And it's basically this kind of thread type connection. And I mean, it's worked fine without issue, but I did notice that it was a little bit loose. And you guys know that we just bought that hydraulic crimper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace this screw together type with the hydraulic crimper and put a actual battery terminal end, crimp it on here, and I think we should be good to go. All right, guys, you can see I did get the copper end crimped on there. We used our little Amazon crimper, like we said in the last video. This is the 2 gauge, because that is the approximate size of this wire. 2 gauge die set, put that in here, tighten it down, and we're good to go. So yeah, this is a much better connection than the old fitting that we had on here, this screw together type. All right guys, so I got the 2 battery cables attached to the starter, basically the battery terminal on the starter here. One is going to the battery, you know, the blue wire. You just saw us replace that end and we crimped it. So that's on there, as well as the other cable that's going up to the fuse box. I want to get the DEI heat shield installed. Pretty simple. All you've got to do is wrap it around the starter and then trim it to fit. The trim piece I have is over here back behind me. I just used a pair of scissors. And the only thing it really specified was make sure you get that hook and loop part away from the header. So what I did was I cut it on the bottom and then I rolled it up toward the block back behind the starter. So things have escalated very quickly. So I have not filmed the last couple of days just because I've been busy knocking out what I thought were projects, trying to resolve issues. But I'll be honest guys, I think we're kind of screwed. And what I mean by that is I think I may have locked up the bottom end of the motor. You guys might be saying, well, didn't you just replace the starter? Yeah, I did. So I went ahead and put the new starter in. You guys can kind of see it down there. So I'm just going to show you guys a trick to try to kick the starter over. You guys take out the relay for the starter and just use the upper spot and then the across right spot like this. You're going to hear the starter click. You guys can hear that click. That click should be kicking the motor over. And yeah, well, if you guys can see, there's no spark plug wires. There's no spark plugs on this side. The manifold's halfway off on this side. Over on the driver's side, you guys can see we have no spark plugs, no coil packs, and no valve cover. You'll also see 2 rockers are missing. Well, I don't know. Long story short, I think maybe, you know, testing the fuel pumps, but I never opened the injector, so maybe I hydrolocked the bottom of the motor, and when I actually tried to start it, it hydrolocked cylinder number 2 or whatever that is. And yeah, so it may have been a rod, I don't know, but I cannot get the bottom end of this car to move. I took the supercharger belt off, if you guys can see right there. Well, it's kind of messy, but took the belt off. I took all of the spark plugs out, and yeah, this thing isn't moving. So, but before I did that, I actually tried to burn the car down, and you guys will see a picture here. That is the battery cable that I replaced earlier, the crimped end that I put on there. Well, unfortunately, that was grounding out against the body of the starter because it was hitting where that little yellow sticker is behind it. And that caused the battery in the back of the car to try to short circuit and go. And basically what that led to was all of those Moroso battery connectors that I made. You guys can actually see the cables back here. Basically, it got all of the connections super hot and melted all the electrical tape and everything that was on here. So you guys can see that right there. That is the spot where it arced and ground out against the body. And as you can see, I've taken out all the battery cable. You guys will notice all this new red battery cable in here. There's a little bit left over here. And that is because I rewired the car for the remote battery location, big 3, whatever you want to call it. So I've been doing that the last couple days. Then flash forward to today where I've been trying to kick the motor over, and I've kind of just went system by system. I took the spark plugs out, tried to kick it over with that relay, you know, that jump that we just showed you. Didn't do anything. It took the supercharger belt off. Tried to kick that relay over, nothing. And finally, when I pulled the spark plugs out, I'll actually show you. I'm not sure if we'll be able to show this on camera. This spark plug right here was on the second cylinder from the front. You guys can see this spark plug is fully collapsed. And if you can see the threads, it looks like something hit the threads. So I don't know if the top of the piston let go, if the ringland finally broke. And unfortunately, guys, I didn't crank this for more than 5 seconds. Like I hit the start button, and it just went, it stopped moving. So that's why I thought the starter died, because, you know, I had taken it out previously as an earlier part of this install. And yeah, so I don't know. I'm going to have to buy a borescope and basically scope that cylinder and see what's going on. All right, guys, so I've been draining the oil for the last, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes, and we're finally down to the spot where it's just dripping. But if you guys look, let me move the pan a little bit, you will actually see oil combined with coolant. So I'm not 100% sure what's going on. So if we had a catastrophic failure, I would have thought I'd see a bunch of aluminum chunks and shreds and stuff down here, but I seen a couple metal, you know, little slivers and stuff, but nothing that, you know, no big chunks of aluminum or steel or anything. So it's just been kind of weird. So yeah, you know, if I move it again, you guys will see that there is coolant mixing with the oil there. So I don't know what the hell is going on, considering there is absolutely no coolant in this motor. I drained it because, you know, we installed the LS9 accessory drive and the water pump and all that. So, oh, and the other thing is, guys, I am not smelling any fuel inside this oil that came out. You know, so my theory of it hydrolocking, at least on gasoline, I don't think that happened. So, and then kind of the other thing is the coolant, it's not that like chocolate milkshake color that I'm used to seeing with blown head gaskets. So you know, this is kind of a caramel color. Yeah, kind of a caramel color, you know, with the oil mixing with the coolant, but you know, it's not that like milkshake color that I'm used to seeing. Guys, if you can look at that motor oil, the LEDs flashing on it, that is not the same color as motor oil that's coming out the bottom of the oil pan. So I think something got screwed up on the bottom end for sure, and that's kind of a telltale sign that the two oil colors are not the same. So, all right, guys, so for today's update, I overnighted a cell phone camera tool that I picked up on Amazon. I'll drop a link down below for this. So this is from Depths Tech, probably Depths Tech is what I would pronounce that as. And basically what it is, it's a Wi-Fi powered camera with I think it's a 12-foot lead. So you guys can see all of this wire harness here wrapped up. I obviously only needed a couple feet of it to go into a cylinder, but you know, it's a very small camera. You know, this right here, there is a light on. I actually have it turned off right now, but you guys can see that, you know, we're watching this, that, you know, that's the camera there, and that's my cell phone. And basically what this does, it allows you to connect wirelessly to your cell phone, and it uses your cell phone as a screen. So it's not an expensive screen. This wasn't a $300 product. I think I got it for $44 and had like a 10% coupon. So that coupon basically paid for shipping and whatnot from Amazon. So I think it ended up being $40. So yeah, so like I said, so this allows you to connect to your phone's Wi-Fi, and I will try to get this down a cylinder. I actually need to turn the flashlight on. So this is pretty simple. There's a power button. There is a little switch right here. If you guys can see, that will turn the flashlight, you know, the little LED to full brightness. So, all right, so if you guys can see, that is something shiny that shouldn't be there. And that is the side of the valve. And if you guys can see, I'll try to aim it. If you guys can see that right there. Now, I don't know if that's the top of the connecting rod or that's the bottom of the cast piston. I'm just not sure. If you guys can see behind it, I'll try to pull back a little bit. If you guys can see behind that, that is a hole in the block. That's the cylinder has a hole in it. Now, I don't remember if the LS2, LS3s are sleeved or not, but yes, that's a fat hole right in the side of the block. And it's not going external, which is why I never even thought that I had this big of an issue. But yeah, so the piston's gone. So the piston is either turned like 90 degrees in the cylinder, and you know, because the piston sits flat, I think it might be sitting like that, and we're seeing, so that's the bottom of the wrist pin that we're seeing, or that's the connecting rod and the piston's exploded into 1,000 pieces. I'm just not sure. So yeah, guys, we have officially blown up a motor on the channel. And I wish I was doing something fun like racing it or anything, but all I was doing was trying to fire it off. And like I said, guys, no less than 5 to 10 seconds of cranking this thing, and that's the damage that happened. So we're gonna start the teardown in the next video, and I am on the search for a short block. Actually, I probably need a new set of cylinder heads too. But obviously, I'm going to need a set of LS3 cylinder heads because the LS9 blower is rectangular port. It's not the cathedral port. And since we're going to be in here, I am not putting a stock engine back in the car. I'm going to go fully forged bottom end. So forge, rods, pistons, maybe crank. I'll have to see what the horsepower ratings on the cranks are and go from there. So that's kind of the future. And so yeah, that's going to be it for today's video. You know, guys, obviously with this type of project and this new expense of having to buy a new motor, I'm really going to need your help. So if you guys can, make sure you hit that like button. Also, make sure you hit that subscribe and share button for this video because, you know, I really could use some help getting the views, just getting this, you know, video out there, get the channel, grow it, you know, help us afford some of these projects. And also make sure you check out our website, BonecrrusherSS.com. You guys can also help out there by, you know, making any purchases. And like I said, pretty much all that stuff will go right back into the new motor with whatever direction we decide to go. I'm not sure. Pretty sure I'm going to get a crate motor, or at least a crate short block, because I don't want to be assembling pistons and all that. So yeah, thanks guys. Have a great one.